I want to share with you this morning some thoughts closing out our series that we've been preaching on prayer. So glad that each of you are here today, and we're going to look into the book of Luke chapter 11 this morning. I'm not using a handout, so if you got a Bible, you want to grab that and go to Luke chapter 11. I want to kind of give you a little bit of background, not so much just on this passage, but on why this passage means a lot to me. I moved here 12 years ago, and when we came here, that first 2 months, we averaged 20 people Sunday morning, and church had been without a pastor for quite a while, and that at that time probably about 25 people would have called the church their home, 25, 27, something like that. And God began to help us. We had some challenging days, had some difficult moments, but there was a sense that God was starting to work, and God was starting to do some things, and it seemed like God was helping. And as he began helping, I'm not really sure exactly what it was that happened as we kind of went along and hit 30 and 45 and 55, and I remember the Sunday we had 53 here, and I was just topping the trees, man. It was like, whoo! And maybe that doesn't do anything for you, but it did for me. And I don't know, I had gotten I felt like I knew God wanted me to be a pastor, and I felt like it just breaks me down to see churches that don't care, and they're inward focused, and they don't care about people, and they don't touch their community, and I wanted to see us do something that wasn't, see God do something that wasn't like that here, and so I don't know what happened, but somewhere along the way, I got distracted. I got distracted from trusting in and resting on God and His strength and His promises. I got distracted from prayer. I got distracted from careful personal holiness. I got just kind of distracted away from all of that. We had gone up to about, by that time we had gotten up to about, I think we averaged about 65 or something like that. And for the next 2 years, this church grew just like a bar of soap. You know what I'm saying, right? Like it grew downward in kind of a really slow way, just like, not so much that you could see it from Sunday to Sunday. It wasn't like this dramatic, like, whoa. It was just like, like that. And I remember the Sunday where I decided, you know what? I've got to make some changes here. Got to make some changes. I think we had 43 that Sunday, and it was just I was in the basement. I felt like I could sit on a curb and dangle my feet. I mean, I was low, feeling small. And I felt like, something's got to change. I know what I need to do. I need to pray. I need to pray some more and do some fasting and praying. And so I decided to go on a 40-day fast of lunch. So I would skip lunch for 40 days and try to spend that time in prayer. And so during that time, what I found out was that God, I should have told you, I had 5 things that I wanted God to do. Like, all it was going to take is if God could just get on my page, right? Things would soon turn around. Am I making sense? Because none of you have ever prayed that way, right? If God could just get on my page, then come on now, Lord. All right, see right here? Here is my 5 things, right? It's right here. If we can do these 5 things, we'll be great. And God kind of brushed all that aside and said, I got some things I'd like to say to you, boy. And so I remember just getting more and more discontent and frustrated and a little bit angry right under the surface with God and people. And I remember the day when I was just aggravated and frustrated, and I walked in. I was in the middle of the lunch prayer time, and I walked into my office and looked down at my bookshelf, and my eyes just dropped on the book, Holiness and Power by A.M. Hills. And God said, you don't have that. You need holiness and you need power. And I suddenly realized that I had gotten distracted into thinking that it was about my work and my effort and my skill or my talent, when actually God said, I've got two things I want to teach you. And He started teaching me more about holiness and power, about being full of the Holy Spirit, about being utterly, completely surrendered to the will of God. And the second thing He started teaching me was out of this passage right here. Luke chapter 11. Let me set the scene up for you. Jesus taught His disciples to pray, right? You all know the Lord's Prayer. I'm not going to take time to cover it this morning because I've got limited time. But Jesus was praying, and I'm guessing His disciples overheard Him praying. And they're like, man, we want to be able to pray like that. What He was doing, that's what we want to do. And so they said, Lord, teach us to pray. And so He taught them this pattern for prayer. And whether you say those words or not, our Father in heaven, hallowed be Thy name, all that, whether you say those words, the point is pray like this and pray with these kind of things and this kind of pattern. Worship God, acknowledge Him, move into, all of those things. And then, right after He closes that story, in Luke chapter 11, verse 5, Jesus tells a story. And He says, Luke 11:5, then Jesus said to them, suppose you have a friend, and you go to him at midnight, and you say, friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread, for a friend of mine on a journey has come to me, and I have no food to offer him. So you're going, and you got a friend, and you go knock on his door at midnight. Right now, some of you guys are late night people, and that's not really a problem because you hadn't really wound down by midnight. But if you knock on the door of the Stetler household at midnight, you're gonna get me out of bed. All right, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Because multiple kids, and what's more, if you knock on the door or ring the doorbell at midnight, you're probably going to wake up some kids too in the process, and don't wake up my kids after I get my kids in bed, y'all. You know what I'm saying? You go, you knock on the door, and you say, friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread because someone has come to me on a long journey and I have nothing to offer him. Now, the reason this is significant is because in this culture where there are no hotels and there are no fast food places and trips are dangerous and they're long and sometimes longer than you expected because your horse went lame on the 5-day journey or the 10-day journey to get from one place to the other. When you arrive somewhere and you go to someone for hospitality, in this culture, they took hospitality really, really seriously. And I mean, it was like, I am responsible to take care of you and feed you and protect you, even if it costs me everything. It is my job to take care of you. And you've been on a long trip to come to me, and you've been traveling through dangerous territory, and you're probably out of food and probably haven't eaten the last 24 hours, and you're hungry and thirsty, and you come in, and I have nothing, and I go to the cupboards and I open the refrigerator, and it's like this much milk in the bottom of the gallon, and it doesn't smell quite right, and there's 3 Ritz crackers and no cheese to go on it. I got nothing. And God began to say something to me in that passage. And He said, Darrell, every single Sunday you have people who come and sit in your church, have come to you on a long journey. Their week has been hard. Their life has been challenging. Circumstances are not what they thought it was. Sometimes they're wondering why their prayers haven't been answered. Sometimes they're discouraged about a relationship. Sometimes they're addicted to something. Sometimes they are broken in 1,000 ways. And here's the deal, Darrell. Your cupboards are empty. You've got nothing in yourself to give them. And boy, at that moment, I was feeling it because it was true. I didn't have anything. I was proving every Sunday that I didn't have anything. Now, don't get me wrong. For a long time, I've had a gift of gab, and I talk. I can talk. We can pull that off. I might even tell a good story, and I might, but I didn't have anything to be able to give a hungry person that would satisfy them and keep them and make them strong for the rest of the journey after they left. I didn't have anything. So there's a tall African American guy who comes in and sits down. He came forward and prayed on our Christmas service, and he's battling a marijuana addiction. And I have nothing. In myself, I can't fix that. A family that's struggling and homeless, and in myself, I can't fix it. I don't have the power to be able, even if I know the right path, I can't give them the power to walk it. You know what I'm talking about? Because let's be honest, sometimes we know the right path, we just don't have the guts to walk it, or the wisdom to know how to take the first step. And in myself, God was convincing me that when I open the cupboards, there's nothing but crumbs in Darrell's cupboards. And so I saw myself in this story. Suppose you got a friend and you go to him at midnight and you say, "Friend, lend me 3 loaves because a friend of mine has come to me on a long journey and I have nothing to set before him." So this is talking about prayer, isn't it? This is me with empty cupboards going to God and saying, I can't help this person. I don't know what to do. I don't have the right words and the right spiritual power to be able to take them from where they are to where they need to go. You're going to have to help me. Great. We're praying. We're talking to the Lord. Now look at this, verse 7. This is going to blow your mind. And he from within shall answer and say, don't bother me. The door's already locked. My children and I are all in bed. Yeah, I can relate to that one. Yeah. I can't get up and give you anything. Now, if you're tracking with me, God just said no. Am I right? Like this might be in the human sense, this might be my least favorite verse in the whole Bible. I mean, like, if I could just erase one verse, it might be this one. Because I don't want God to say no. I want him to say, okay, sure, here you go. Give me what you want, and tomorrow I'll come back and get what I need again, right? That's what I'd like to happen. Because there's big needs here in Oklahoma City, right? I mean, there's big, significant things. Why does God say no? Is it because he doesn't love me? Is it because he doesn't care? Is it because he was busy? Is it because it's not his will to help that person? What's going on here? No, that's not why. It's something else. This is a lesson I want you to please hear this and please learn this. Sometimes God answers no to protect you from something that you don't know, right? That could hurt you, okay? Sometimes he does, but that's not what this is it? No, that's not what this one is. He could give him the bread. It's a need. It's a real, genuine need. It's not going to hurt anything if he gives him the bread. So why? This is not one of those times when God says no to protect somebody. What's going on here? Sometimes God says no to see what will happen in you when he says no. sometimes God says no, or he seems like he doesn't answer, not because he doesn't love you and not because it would be bad for you. It might be good for you, what you're asking, but sometimes he says no to see what happens inside you. Look what happens next in this next verse. I say unto you, verse 8, I say to you, though he will not and get up and give you the bread because you are his friend. Okay. If you're tracking with me here, don't miss that. That means there are some things God will not do for you because you're a Christian. Okay? Just because you're a child of God, you go knock, and God says, okay, here you go. God's not a vending machine. Just you plug in your 35 cents worth of prayer, punch the right code, and down drops the answer, and you pick up. He's not that. What is going on when he says, I won't even get up and give you what you need because you are my friend? There are some things God will not do for you just because you are a believer in Jesus. There are some things God will not do for you just because you attend the Bible Methodist Church on Sunday or Servants Heart Chapel, or just because the name over your door, he might not get up and give you what you ask just because you belong to the right group. Just because you are his friend. Now look at this. What will make him answer then? What will help God? What will make God come to the point where he's willing to say yes to some things? Look at this now. I tell you, he will not get up and give you the bread because of friendship, yet because of your shameless audacity, he will surely get up and give you as much as you need. Now, if you're reading the old translation, the King James Version, you'll see the word importunity. Because of his importunity. What is importunity? I think shameless audacity is a pretty good translation of it. I'm reading the NIV this morning. That shameless, because of your shameless audacity. In fact, I would go so far as to say I think they should add one more word to that translation. Shameless, persistent audacity. Shameless, persistent audacity. You know what audacity is, right? Let me tell you what audacity is. Audacity is that moment when you knock on my door at midnight, and you're like, hey, I got a guest that came by and I got no food. Could you give me some food? And I say, what are you doing knocking on my door at midnight? Man, you're going to wake my kids up? I'm not dressed properly, and no, come back at 9 in the morning, all right? Come back at 8. No. And I've got the door open this much, talking to you through the crack, and I close the door, and you hear the deadbolt turn, and you hear my footsteps start walking away, and you know what happens? Some of you already know. Darrell, I said, give me some food. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Oh, now you are waking up my kids? But do you see what I'm saying? That's shameless, persistent audacity. And even if I decided at that frustrating moment to go back and lay down, and you kept knocking, and you kept on knocking, what kind of idiot do you have to be to do that, right? Most of us would go like this. We go like, Darrell, I got this food. Can you give me some food because I have a friend and I got nothing to give him? And he's, no, man, come back tomorrow morning. I'm asleep. My kids are asleep. I can't give you anything right now. Oh, okay. Like I'm sorry. I'm sorry to bother you. And go back to empty cupboards. That's what most of us would do that, or we'd figure out something else. We'd try to figure out some other path. But this guy in Jesus' story says, going back to empty cupboards is not an option. It is not an option I'm willing to live with. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Father, I said, this is what I need, and I don't see you answering yet, and I'm just wanting to tell you, shameless audacity. What would you think of me if I was knocking at your door and I stayed? And I kept knocking. And I just kept knocking. What would you think of me after a while? Yeah, I know you would. I know you would, okay? I know you would. But what would you think if you said no and I wouldn't answer, I wouldn't leave? What would you think? You know what that is? It's importunity. It's shameless, persistent audacity. And that is one of the most important things about your prayer life. What you do when God says no is one of the most important things about your prayer life. When you have knocked and you have asked something that, as best you understand, is within the will of God and it is right for you. Lord, I am trying to provide for my family. Is it God's will that you provide for your family? Say yes. Yes, it is. God, I'm trying to provide for my family. Please, you've got to answer this prayer. Give me wisdom to know how to spend. Give me the wisdom to budget. Give me this promotion at work. Help me to find an extra job. That's in the will of God, is it not? Yes. Yes, it is. Lord, you've got to save my kids. Yes. They're breaking their lives on the rocks of sin. You've got to save my kids. It's not an option. I'm not going back home to empty cupboards. I got nothing to give them. I can't make my kids do right. I can't make them do right by force of will. I can't. You got to say, one of the most important things about your prayer life is what you do after God says no. Sometimes God says no because it's not His will. But sometimes God says no because He is watching to see if an attitude of faith-filled, audacious persistence rises up in you and says, no, I'm not going back home to empty cupboards. I can't do it. I'm not going back home and saying, well, I was empty and I'm still empty. I had nothing and I still have nothing. I guess I'll just quit and shrivel up and die. No! Come on! I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to keep knocking. Here's how you pray for the honor and the glory of God. When you know that your cupboards are empty and you can't do it by yourself, and you knock and it seems like God doesn't answer, when you believe that behind that door is everything you need and you're not leaving until you get what you need. Now, I'm not talking about being somehow we're twisting God's arm up behind His back or intimidating Him. No, what I'm talking about is He's watching you to see when I say no, is there something that rises up inside you and says, no, this is for the honor and the glory of God. Yes. You're the only one that can give me what I need. I can't get it from somewhere else. I can't go down to some other place and find it. You are the only one who can save my kids, provide for my family, meet my needs. You're the only one who can do it. And I'm not leaving. That is audacious persistence. Charles Finney, great revival preacher of years ago, he traveled across the eastern half of the United States up in the Northeast and saw huge revivals and thousands, tens of thousands. Some reports say 250,000 people converted in his revival meetings. Charles Finney was speaking about prayer one time, and he said, let us be careful not to confuse submission to the will of God with indifference to the will of God. Now, let me just back up and try that again, just because you're looking at me like a calf looks at a new gate here. Okay? Let's not confuse submission to the will of God. You know what's happening here? My phone is ringing, and I have no idea how this is working. My wife is calling my phone. Can somebody check on my wife, make sure everything's okay? Probably Gideon's probably calling from her phone, but that's weird. Okay. All right. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it. That was bizarre. Okay. Let us be careful not to confuse submission to the will of God. Like, okay, Lord, what? Not my will, but what you want. Okay, that's submission. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to have to, my phone is supposed to automatically silence itself, and today it did not. And now it is.
It's shamelessly persistent.
What he said. If this is like a joke or an illustration somebody's trying to do, okay, I get it now, okay? We get it. Thank you, Dan. All right. Let me try the Charles Finney part again, okay? Can we back up and do it again? Here we go. Charles Finney, the great revivalist, said, "Let us not confuse submission to the will of God, okay, Lord, whatever you want, with indifference to the will of God." Submission is, I give God the right to answer however He wants. Indifference is, yeah, whatever. Right? He told a story. He said there was in a place where people were crying out to God for a revival in their church. The power of God to show up and convert people to Christianity, to do mighty things. He said, we were praying. He said, this man came into our meeting and he heard the saints praying as though they would not be denied. And it said he was shocked and kept insisting on the importance of praying with submission to the will of God. And he said it was plain to everyone that he was confusing submission with indifference to the will of God. Submission means what Jesus said when he went into the garden and he prayed, "O Lord, take this cup from me, nevertheless, not what I want, but what you want," right? Because the pain he was about to go through was about to glorify and honor God. But indifference to the will of God is, I tried, he didn't say anything, so whatever. That's indifferent. Don't do that. You should pray with submission. In fact, let me tell you a real quick story. Submission happens. Here's how you submit to God in prayer. Submission happens when God's will is revealed to be something other than what you were asking for. That's when submission is important. For instance, the story of David in the Old Testament. David, he fell into adultery and sinned with Bathsheba. She became pregnant. She was going to have the baby, and God said, "David, I'm going to judge you because of your sin. The baby is going to die." Now, here's an amazing thing. David, after God said, he sent a message to David, the baby is going to die. David laid on his face before God for 7 days and would not eat, and would not get up, and would not take a shower, and would not go. He just laid there and prayed for 7 days. His servants saw him, and he wouldn't eat. He was beside himself. The servants came and saw on the day when the child passed away, on the 7th day, they came and they're peeking into the room, and he's still laying there praying, and he's not, and they're whispering among themselves. And David overhears, and he turns and sees them whispering among themselves, and he says, he raised his head and says, "Is the child dead?" And they said, "Yes, he is." Because they were thinking, if he's this beside himself with it, what's going to happen? What's going to happen when the child goes? What's going to happen? And they asked him, and he asked them, and they said, "Yes, the child's dead." And he got up, he took a bath, he went and ate something. And they were like, What's the problem here? And here's what he said. He said, "While the child lived, I thought, who knows, the Lord may be gracious and change his mind." Now, is that beautiful? Here's a man who has spent his life leaning into the mercy of God and grace of God. He has such hope in the mercy of God that it could be that God will change his mind, even though God's already revealed it. And yet when the time came, he showed such beautiful submission to the will of God. That's submission. But the time before that was persistent, audacious, even in the face of it seems like this is what God is saying. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to knock. So friends, let me tell you. Here's what I have decided. I have decided that there are some things, there are some people that I'm praying for. Some of you right here, I call your names in prayer. And you don't belong to the Lord now. You're around, and I'm glad. You're here, I'm glad. But you're not sold out and committed, and you know it. Some of you aren't right with the Lord. You know if God was to come back right now and you had to stand before Him, there'd be some things you'd want to take care of. You're not right with the Lord. And here's my determination. I am standing at the door, and I'm knocking, and I'm asking Him to save you, and I'm asking Him to save your kids, and I'm asking Him to do mighty things in your life, and I'm asking Him for healing for you. I'm asking Him for things, and I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to knock until my knuckles bleed. And then when those knuckles are raw and bleeding, I'm going to turn around, I'm going to knock with these knuckles. And then when I can't do it anymore, I'm going to knock with these knuckles. And then when I can't do that anymore, I'm going to knock with these. And when I'm too tired to do anything else, I'm going to lay on the ground and kick the door. And then when I can't do that anymore, I'm going to lay on the ground and scream. But I'm not leaving. Because what I'm asking for is that God would do something so mighty in your life that it would change you forever. That it would revolutionize your life. And that our church would be such a powerful force for God that in this community shot full of prescription drugs and meth and gangs and everything else, in the middle of this community, God would do something so mighty that the drug dealer's business would dry up and the bars would close down and the crime rate would drop. And I'm staying here until God does something that I can't do.
Dear Lord.
You see, the reason I say this is because one of these days, and I have faith, I believe this, one of these days, the door is going to open.
Dear Lord.
And I'm going to hear footsteps coming across the door, or across the floor, and that door is going to fling open, and God's going to say, "Oh, I was hoping you wouldn't leave. I was hoping you'd knock one more time. I was hoping you'd ask again, because you see, now you want it like I wanted to give it to you. You see, I wanted to give it to you this much, and you only wanted it this much. And I had to let you stand at the door and knock until how much you wanted it got up to the place where you wanted it like I wanted to give it to you. I was hoping you wouldn't leave." You see, I've determined that there's nothing in the world that's going to keep me from asking and seeking and knocking. I want to close with this story. I had a friend just a few weeks ago. His name is Lauren Derscheid. Lauren lived in Michigan. We went to college together. He's about my age. Lauren Derscheid we worked together. We drove forklift together, worked our way through college. Lauren was a few years ago, about a few months ago, was diagnosed with a terminal cancer. The doctor told him that they had, the only opportunity they had was some very aggressive radiation chemotherapy options, and they went forward and proceeded with that. In the process, he was so in the process of the chemo and all that, you understand how that beats your body down. And so Lauren was sick and ill and not able to do a lot. And so in that season of his life, he began to pray for people. He found some of our messages, some of our church's messages on YouTube, and some of them were an encouragement to him. So he contacted me on Facebook and said, "I just wanted to know if there's anything I can pray for you and your church about." So I messaged Lauren back, and I sent him some prayer requests. I sent him some names. I sent him some people. I said, "I want you to pray for the men in our church, for a mighty move of God among the men in our church, because there's too many of us," and I'm including myself in that. There's too many of us that are half in and half out. We're half in and half out. You know, we're at best we're half Jesus and half world. You know, it's half of what I want and half of what God wants, at the best. I said, "Pray for a mighty move of God among the men in our church." A week ago, Lauren contacted me on Facebook and told me, he said, I just got the news that the doctors are telling me that they've done everything they can for me. And outside of the possibility that God completely heals me, which He could do, but outside of that possibility, he said, they've just told me I'm going home to die. And he said, I just want to tell you, Darrell, that I'm going to pray for those requests until Jesus takes me home. See, He's calling your name. He's praying for you. And I'm just crazy enough to believe that there's going to come a day where the doors are going to fly open and God's going to say, oh, you needed some bread? You needed something to take back? Well, here, how about this? And how about this? And do you have a wheelbarrow? Could you back a truck up here? Because I've got some blessings I'd like to unload that I've been holding and saving until your desire for it got up to the point where it matched my desire to give it to you. And God's going to bless, and God's going to work, and there's going to be some men powerfully transformed by the grace of God. I'm asking God to give us 100 men here, like John Wesley said. John Wesley said, give me 100 men who love nothing but God and fear nothing but sin, and I'll turn the world upside down. And I'm asking God to give us 100 men like that. He's praying for you. I'm praying for you. And I'd like to say, Lord, if you're watching, I've got no words for that. I'm humbled. I'm humbled. But I want to tell you that I'm a partner with you in prayer. And we're partnering together with him in prayer. You go back and knock on that door again. And if God doesn't answer tomorrow, you go back and knock again. And if he doesn't answer next week, you go back and knock again. Because there's going to come a day where God's going to answer. Let's bow our heads together for prayer.